Hey traders, and welcome to your weekly Forex trade planning session. It's been a little while since I put out a video on YouTube. For those of you that know me, you'll know that my wife is Ukrainian. So over the past, since sort of February, March type time, we've really been focusing a lot of our efforts on helping her friends and family and other people from the Ukraine be able to get to safety and hopefully, a lot of them come to the United Kingdom. So a lot of my focus has been on that, which is why I haven't been putting out any YouTube videos. However, things are starting to settle down a little bit now, and I obviously want to get back to making these videos. And I decided to go back to making a series that I used to do a long time ago. It was a lot of fun for me. I think you guys got a lot of value out of it as well. So I've decided to bring that back, and that is sort of like the, a version of the Forex Focus. So it's a weekly Forex trade planning session where I'm going to look ahead. I'm going to tell you what I'm looking at in the markets and the FX markets, the sorts of setups that I'm looking at, all in a bit to try and give you a helping hand and help you plan for your week ahead. Now, I need to let you know up front that obviously nothing that I say here is investment advice. I'm not authorized or regulated to give investment advice. I simply can give you my opinions on the markets, and obviously they're my own opinions. The other thing is what I do in these videos is I'll give you sort of like a directional view. So we'll look at various pairs. Some of the most high probability pairs that I feel in my mind are going to present opportunities for the week ahead, but I won't be able to give you specific entry criteria because obviously I'm not going to be there trading with you. So I can't, drill down to the 1 hour chart for you and say, get in here, because that technical setup, it might not be there yet. If there is a technical setup that's sort of immediately on the horizon, then absolutely I can go ahead and say, look, if we get a break of this candle, then this is what we want to trade. But there will be instances where I'll only be able to say to you, I think the, cable, for example, the pound dollar is going to sell off for the coming week. So we thought we're going to see some sort of like downside momentum. And then it'll be down to you to then take that to your strategy and sort of incorporate that with your strategy and say, okay, now that I've got the directional view, how can I incorporate that and use that with my particular trading setup to be able to find a trading opportunity? Okay, so with that being said, let's jump into the charts and let's start looking at the opportunities for the week ahead. Now we're going to start by, we'll go chronologically, we'll go alphabetically. So we'll start with the Aussie Cad and we'll work our way down. Now, I look at over, 28, 30 different currency pairs at any one time. I won't be looking at every single one of those during this video because not all of them are presenting opportunities. We only focus on the ones that really are presenting an immediate opportunity, so movement that I can see for the coming, few days or for the coming week ahead. All right, so if we take a look at the Aussie Cad here, we can see that the Aussie Cad has been in a downtrend for quite some time. If I zoom out here on the daily chart, you can see that ever since March of this or February of this year, we can see that the Aussie Cad has been trending lower and lower and lower, which I guess isn't so much of a surprise, being that the Canadian dollar is obviously a commodity currency, and we've seen what's happened with oil prices and things like that. Since February of this year, with to do the start of the war and everything. Now, what we have on our hands right now is, if I move the 4 hour chart just so it's sort of in the same view, is where we're trading today. So if we take a look here, we can see that the market has sold off. So there was that period, a little bit of a respite in the downwards trajectory where the market, it did pull back a little bit. You can see that over here on the 1st of April, it then sold off again. It's broken through a level of support at the 0.8914. It's then pulled back to it. And then what I did over here is I drew in a little bit of a trend line to notify me or to alert me to the fact that the trend might be resuming. And that looks to be what sort of happened going into, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week. Now, what I'm looking for in this pair is I'm looking for another momentum candle. Momentum candles are sort of big candles like this, where you can see that clearly there is one particular side in control. So I'm waiting for that to print here. Hopefully it prints on Monday, and if not Monday, then Tuesday. I don't really want a reversal here, but if we can get the momentum candle in the Aussie Cad, that's going to open up some opportunities to be able to take trades to the downside. Now, if you want to get a little bit more sort of like shorter term, then you can jump down to maybe a 4-hour chart. You can see that we're playing with the lows right here. In that case, you wouldn't necessarily have to wait for a daily momentum candle. You could even take a break below the lows at the 0.8919 level. That is a little bit aggressive, but that could pay off. There's another trade there I'm going to show you later, but I just want to jump across to that chart right now because you can see we've got a very similar sort of setup there where the euro dollar broke through this trend line. It spent 1 or 2 days moving sideways and then it broke to the downside. Now, had you have waited for the daily chart to close, you would have only got your trade on Friday with the euro dollar. However, had you just jumped down to a shorter term time frame and maybe just taken a breakthrough support, you could have taken this trade over here as 1.013. So in and around that area there. So you could have gotten a little bit sooner. And that's what I'm talking about with the Aussie Cad. That's the potential that you have out there. The next opportunity is the Aussie Yen. The Aussie Yen obviously has some legs to move to the upside. We have to deal with the fact, sorry for jumping about here, but it's important for context. The Aussie Yen has some opportunity to break to the upside, but it is dealing with the fact that the Aussie dollar as a whole is obviously selling off as well. So what we want to see here is we do want to see a momentum candle, so a big bodied bullish candle on the Aussie Yen here, which would also take us through this trend line, which will give us a nice opportunity to get in there and start buying the Aussie Yen. But if we see that the market comes up to this trend line, then starts to sell off, and we jump across to the Aussie dollar chart, which is something that you have to do when you're trading the currency markets. You can't just trade one currency pair in isolation. You have to see what the currencies are doing overall and in general against each other. If you just try and trade one pair in isolation, yes, you can make money, but you are leaving a lot of helpful information out there that could obviously help you. So, it's always a good idea to keep an eye on a few of the different currencies here, especially the ones that affect your particular trade. So the Aussie Yen, we are looking for a breakup here. If we can get that breakup, that would signify a great opportunity to start buying the markets. But if we don't get that and the market comes to this trend line here and then it starts to sell off, then we need to be open to the opportunity to sell from this level. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure if I would be a seller in the Aussie Yen. It is probably a case of me waiting for an opportunity to buy. And if I don't get the opportunity to buy, then wait for a bigger move to the downside, at which point I might reassess. But I'm not necessarily keen on selling when it gets into this trend line, even though that might be the catalyst for the market to sell off a little bit more. We've got another opportunity in the Aussie New Zealand. Now, this was an opportunity from last week. So actually we had, obviously I didn't put out this video last week, so you wouldn't have had the opportunity to get in here, but this was a nice trade on the 4-hour chart. We took a break through this trend line over here at the 1.1081. Stop, we're using a 2-bar stop at the moment. That I can explain in a different video if you like. So if you're interested in hearing more about the stop losses and things like that, let me know and I'll put that in a different video. But 2-bar stop there, and that goes on to hit the profit target really very quickly. The nice thing is that this is now opened up an opportunity in the Aussie New Zealand from the daily basis. And so we've got the daily candle here, which is closed with a lot of momentum to the upside. If we get a break through the highs at 1.1144, that will be a great opportunity to look to start buying. Again, using the 2-bar stops, your stop would be roughly 1.1017, which allows us to have a more aggressive profit target, which will allow us to obviously take profits a lot more quickly. If we move on to the Aussie dollar, we spoke about this just now. So this one here, if we look at the daily chart, this is reacting to a previous level of support. Let me put in the support level here. So it's a previous level of support there, which then starts acting as resistance, which is one of my favorite trading setups. It's one that's just really reliable, and it plays out every single time in the markets. Well, not every single time, the majority of the time. You know what I'm saying. But we've got that opportunity over here. So the market's reacted to that. It's broken down. You've got an opportunity to take the breakthrough, the low on that actually broke through on Friday there. So you wouldn't necessarily have got in at that particular point that late on a Friday. But what do we do right now? Well, at the moment, we'll look for another either momentum bar on the daily basis, giving us an opportunity to sell the Aussie dollar from a slightly longer term perspective, or from the 4-hour perspective, we can wait for a little period of consolidation, perhaps in the Asian session overnight. So going into the London session, maybe you've got some consolidation here. We've got a bit of an intraday low that we could take the sell from. So take the sell through that level there. But certainly this looks like it's going lower in the week ahead. If we take a look at the franc yen, so the franc yen is similar to the Aussie yen. The difference here, obviously, is that the franc yen is a stronger pair at the moment. So the Aussie yen, you'll notice that there was far more consolidation. So we had this big move back, and then we had this big move back over here. The franc yen, we can see that actually it is kind of trading with the highs. I like the fact that it broke out above here. The next big-bodied, bullish candle, so the next momentum candle will probably take us through the highs at 143.82. If we can get that opportunity to take the trade through the highs, okay, then you could take that as a more aggressive entry. If you're slightly more conservative, you wait for the candle to close outside of the highs there, and then take the break on take the trade rather on the break of the high of the candle that closes outside above the highs here. It's a bit of a mouthful, but hopefully you see what I'm saying there. The euro yen is a little bit of a strange one. So the euro yen, I'm kind of, from a technical perspective, looking at the daily chart, there's the opportunity for this to break up. All right, absolutely. If we look at this, we've got a nice big pullback. A lot of the time when you get a pullback like that, the markets all jump onto it and they say, oh, okay, let's start selling them. The trend has changed and everything, which if we look at the euro dollar, again, bringing into focus the fact that you need to look at various different currency pairs, you would say that, oops, why can I not get that on there? So if we look at the euro dollar, you would say actually probably the euro is going to weaken, which would then have an impact on the euro yen. But there still is that opportunity for the market to break up there. So we need to keep an open mind. And if we get a nice big momentum candle, then look to obviously trade that to the upside. Now, in terms of trading it to the downside, we have this trend line in here, as you can see. So 1 bounce, 2 bounces. The next time the market comes down there, if we can get the break through that level, I think that's going to be a good opportunity to sell, especially if the euro dollar over here continues on its merry way. So here we had a couple of trades last week actually in the euro dollar. So some nice opportunities to sell here. The most recent one was obviously on the 18th when the market broke through this temporary trend line over here. It broke through the lows at one spot, 0.125, giving a very nice opportunity to take some profit on a short euro trade. This could still move lower, all right? And if this moves lower, then obviously that's going to help our euro yen trade a little bit. But more importantly, it's going to give us some nice opportunities in the euro dollar. I think the euro dollar will probably move lower in the coming weeks anyway. We've seen some dollar strength. A lot came out from some of the some Fed comments last week about more interest rate hikes and being open to being just as aggressive as they have been in recent months. And obviously after the last one, the markets thought that maybe the Fed would take their foot off the pedal a little bit, but some of the comments that came out last week was kind of saying that actually they wouldn't. So if inflation didn't come down, then they would be just as aggressive. So that obviously allowed us to see some dollar strength, which if you look at the dollar index here, you can see that, very, very well. So coming back to the euro dollar, and what we're saying about this here is that there really is some opportunities to sell. I don't think we've missed this move right now. There's some nice momentum candles, but when it gets going, and you take advantage of those momentum candles, look, it just goes and goes and goes. So there are lots of opportunities. Just because you don't get in at the beginning of the move doesn't mean that you can't obviously take profits and make some money. And particularly the way that we trade, a lot of people trade where they want to get in at the beginning of the move, and they put their stop above the highs, and then that's kind of it. That's the only opportunity that they have. The way that we approach the markets allows us to take advantage of these momentum moves, allows us to be a bit more aggressive, but then obviously the upside to that is it allows us to have more opportunities and make money. So, I think looking at this going into the week ahead, this probably will move lower. And if we get more momentum candles, then you need to look to sell and getting on the sell on the euro dollars. Pound CAD over here. So there was a very nice opportunity last week. We got the initial breakdown over here. We're now playing with the lows. All right. So we've got the lows here at 1.5347. You can see that's the daily low. What is going to take us below that? Well, let's jump across to the pound dollar. We can see that the pound dollar is also selling off, similar to the euro dollar. In fact, it sold off a little bit more. It took some nice profits on this last week. But this one, if the pound dollar here gets through this low at 1.1766, in fact, we can talk about them at the same time. The pound dollar and the pound CAD, they're pretty much carbon copies. So, if the pound dollar goes lower, look for the pound CAD to move lower as well. You don't necessarily want to be in all of them at exactly the same time because they are obviously correlated currency pairs. You can see that there's a correlation there. So you wouldn't want to take both trades at exactly the same time. You would maybe, if you do want to take them, then you would split up your position, maybe take sort of 50% on one and 50% on the other. But the truth of the matter is that if you end up taking both opportunities, then you're just in the same trade, okay? But we're looking for, more downside momentum from the pound CAD and the pound dollar. Obviously, what I said about the Fed is going to feed into that as well. The pound New Zealand over here, as we can see, is also giving us an opportunity to potentially go short. It broke through this trend line, so another opportunity. Trend line breaks, I love them. If you don't use trend line breaks, if you don't use support and resistance, you absolutely have to. It really is the only way to find entries on a chart, and it's the best way. It's just so reliable. But anyway, so the pound New Zealand gave us some nice opportunities to sell last week. It then gave us a little bit of a pullback, as we can see here. And what we're looking for is we're looking for a resumption of the downwards momentum. So what we would like to see is for the market to break through this level at 1.9036, at which point we could then, obviously take this to the short side. That may mean that we get the momentum candle on the daily here. It might not. So it might be that the market moves sideways through Monday, and then Tuesday it breaks down a little bit here. So we wouldn't get the daily close, but I certainly would have an eye on putting an order in at 1.9038 to take advantage of some downside momentum, because I think if the market does get to this low and it goes through the low, then really we could see it push, significantly lower and at least down towards the support level at 1.8801. The pound dollar, we talked about that with the pound CAD. We've got New Zealand franc here, which is starting to make a bit of a move down. It spent the last 2 months in this trading range over here. What I'm waiting for is for the market to break support at 0.5904. If it does that, gives us a nice momentum candle, I think we see quite a nice aggressive move to the downside. The New Zealand franc, as you can see here, it does this a lot, where it's got these big consolidation periods, and then when it breaks down with momentum, and that's exactly what we could see here. So if we get below 0.5901, look to the New Zealand franc to move much lower and to do it very, very quickly. New Zealand CAD has got a great opportunity over here. Again, New Zealand CAD, New Zealand dollar, they're the same. So the Canadian dollar and the US dollar are quite closely correlated. So anything that you see in the Canadian dollar, you're likely to see it in the US dollar as well. So New Zealand CAD and New Zealand dollar, pretty much the same setup, and very similar one to the euro dollar and the pound dollar as well. And that we've got the momentum candles here. We're going to have opportunities in both of these pairs on the long-term time frame, so off the daily. And if you want to get more aggressive, then to jump down to something like the 4-hour or even the 1 hour to get some shorter-term opportunities. The last one we'll look at today is the dollar yen. So the dollar yen was something that we were buying, very, very aggressively throughout this year. It was just a trade that made sense both from a fundamental and a technical perspective. Look at that technical chart there. It's just like literally up, 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 up. We then had a period of consolidation. To be fair, I thought that this was going to rally before now, but it has spent the last sort of month or so just in a bit of a pullback. It looks like as the summer months are, coming to an end, so we get back into real trading in September, it looks as if we're going to see a bit more strength in the dollar, which we've already talked about here. So really look to the dollar yen to give us some nice move to the upside. So you can even start trading this to the upside now. Obviously, keep an eye on resistance at 139 spots 36, but perhaps take some shorter-term tactical trades on the 4-hour chart and look to get in and out before we even get up to that high. And once we get to that high, then you can look to reassess, maybe take some off the table and wait for another opportunity to get in once the market is through that high. Okay. So that wraps it up for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions about anything that I put in here, please make sure that you post it beneath the video. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in next week's weekly Forex trade planning session. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you all soon.